Thank you, Madam Chairman. Over the course of my Nuffield, I have been exploring the implications of short-term land tenure on the farming sector and their interplay between helping or hindering both the landowner and occupier achieve their multi-purpose roles of food security, of being a land manager and custodian. Now, to provide some context, the average length of a farm business tenancy in the UK is only 3 years. And before I set out on this Nuffield journey, I thought I had it cracked. The average length of a tenancy, in order to secure longer-term thinking, should surely be longer, a fixed-term tenancy. But as I went down this journey, I soon thought otherwise. So setting out on this journey, I've met with some incredible people, and I've put some stats on the screen. And yes, as a ginger Englishman, setting out to some incredibly hot countries, I can assure you that at least 5 bottles of Factor 50 sun cream were absolutely necessary in this process. So after all of this, what did I learn? I asked this single question on my travels, and the answers which I received are summarised in the word cloud. The larger the word, the more people provided that answer. So what do we see up here? Trust, culture, relationships, all identified as a big concern. High rents, although market-driven, are generally disproportionate to the related earning capacity. Business planning, security, investment, all needed for a business to think with commercial context and to future-proof that business for the next generation. And perhaps most importantly, soil health. Our most valuable asset, which our farming sector relies on, is increasingly coming under strain as businesses are looking for short-term gain in an era of increasing price volatility and uncertainty in the market. The notable degradation of our soils, weed infestation, black grass are just a few of the associated negative outcomes. In Brazil, I think I met with the most dedicated farmer who was set on improving his soils, Rogério, who liked to be known as the worm farmer, because this was exactly how he measured his success. So much so that other neighbouring farmers were coming up to Rogério asking him to take on their farms to farm them on their behalf. And farming up to 5,000 hectares of land, I asked Rogério how he managed this, because he had multiple landowning clients. And his response was simple: a clear, long-term vision between both the landowner and the occupier needs to be defined at the outset. And this long-term vision needs to go way beyond the average length of that agreement. Now, to put this in context, the average length of an agreement within the Rio Grande do Sul state in Brazil is just 1 year. And okay, the majority of the agreements that Rogério has are rolling on year. But he said to me that this long-term vision needs to be threefold: focusing on investment, soil health, and people. So effectively, he was running with 2 documents in place. One, legally binding, the tenancy, and another agreement actually sitting in the background with his landowners over those larger long-term objectives. This vision was almost emphasised to me by the Arn family, who farm near the Uruguayan border. They, 5 years ago, took on a fixed-term 10-year tenancy agreement. And at that time, when they took on the tenancy, they were in a position to bid the highest rent. But they knew that they would not be in a position to do this in 5 years' time. So they need to differentiate themselves from other potential bidders that in 5 years' time would outstrip them and bid a higher rent. So they needed to create their unique selling point, differentiate themselves, if you like, from those in a position to pay more. Their weapon within their armoury was their due diligence to considering their triple bottom line. Now, for all of us, I'm sure we focus very heavily on our single bottom line, profitability, cash flow. And this is, of course, easily measurable because it all happens above ground. We focus on yield, cash flow, fixed cost, variable costs, debt levels, funding. But how many of us focus on our second bottom line, measuring ecosystems, water quality, that magical mystery of soil well-being? A farmer has a vital role as a custodian, and therefore there is no reason why quantifiable, measurable objectives shouldn't be put in place when considering these. And lastly, our social responsibility, future-proofing the business for the next generation and beyond. Only once all three of these factors have been considered with due thought, consideration and buy-in by both the landowner and the occupier can that business in the round between both parties be considered truly sustainably minded. And this was perhaps re-emphasised to me by Brad and his family, who I met in New Zealand. Brad works for the Maori Trustee and told me that the Maori's sense of belonging is perfectly ingrained within their ownership of the land and its use of it. And he said to me that one must consider the implications on the underlying asset. So let's do this. Now, it's reasonable to assume that over time, land prices are increasing. Let's consider the implications of that tenancy that I referenced right at the beginning of this presentation, or of our average length of a farm business tenancy across bare land. Now let's consider the implications on value if this is rolling on over 3 years as a new agreement is offered to a new occupier, or simply rolling on annually without any long-term vision sitting in the background. What are the implications going to be on value? It's surely not got to be good. Now let's consider the implications on value if sat in the background there are overarching objectives, goals and visions aligned between those who are farming the land and those who own it. Long term, over 50, 100 years, the implications on value are surely going to be more positive. So I want us to consider what my key take-home messages are. The farming sector and those in a position to influence, professional advisors, rural surveyors, land agents, need to broaden their outlook and be more holistic when it comes to considering the range of land tenure options that are available to them. From more collaborative structures, partnership arrangements, contract farming arrangements, through to more risk-averse structures, leases, licenses, or tenancies. And perhaps alarmingly, amongst the rural profession, land agents, rural surveyors, there is an alarmingly basic level of understanding when it comes to soil health. So I urge all rural surveyors and land agents to put one of these in the boot of your car and use it when providing advice. Relationships are absolutely key. And ensuring that there are shared visions, common goals, and clear, defined objectives between those who are farming the land and those who own it should be set out from the start. The removal of unnecessary barriers. Some examples. A landowner is required to register a lease in England over 7 years with the land registry. That creates a psychological barrier in the mindset of a landowner. Entrepreneurs relief, rollover relief. Perhaps we should consider applying these to let land for the purpose of capital gains tax. And perhaps most importantly, short-termism. Short-term thinking is an absolute sin when it comes to farming. But I don't think that that means that a short-term agreement is necessarily a bad thing. Flexibility is a business requirement. And I want to leave you with a fantastic quote which I picked up throughout my journey, which I think perfectly summarises my report. And that is that culture will eat strategy for breakfast any day. And when you think about it, it is absolutely true. You can have the best landlord and tenant contractual relationship in place. You can focus most definitely on your most detailed profit and loss forecast. But without a seismic shift towards concentrating on the relationship between those who own land and those who use land, that well-defined strategy will never come to fruition. And for those of us who need a little reminder, the word culture is even embedded in the name of our industry. So I would like to finish with a thank you. The Nuffield experience has been a life-changing journey for me, and an emotional roller coaster, as I have really started to question my outlook in life and what I would like to achieve. My wholehearted thanks go to my sponsor, the NFU Mutual Charitable Trust, my employer, George F. White, for allowing me the time off work to embark on this journey, and some key individuals. My dad, for ingraining a strong work ethic in me. Hugh Fell, Stephen Fell, and Louis Fell. And of course, all of those that I met along the way. For without all of you, my life would not have changed today in preparation for improving things tomorrow. So thank you.